You're listening to the Big Three of B2B Leadership podcast with Mike Faherty, where world-class business leaders share their secrets for personal, organizational, and market growth. Gain powerful insights from industry leaders that have been tested by the fire.
Well, welcome everyone to the Big Three of B2B Leadership, where we invite industry leaders to share their thoughts on personal and professional development, developing and maintaining operational excellence in an organization, and then finally expanding your company's position in the marketplace. My name is Mike Faherty. I'm your host, and today I have the pleasure of being joined by Bob Phibbs. Bob is the CEO of TheRetailDoctor. Bob's an internationally recognized business strategist, customer service expert, sales coach, marketing mentor, author of 3 books, and a motivational speaker to boot. He's spent the last 30 years in the trenches of retail, ups and downs, and his clients include brands such as Caesar's Palace, Hunter Douglas, Lego, Vera Bradley, and Yamaha, to name just a few. These brands and other big and small brands around the country trust Bob to help them, and more specifically, their retail salespeople, create an emotional connection with their customers. I'm excited to talk about sales and business growth with Bob today. So welcome, Bob, and thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Mike. You make me sound like I'm an important guest. That's nice. Thanks.
You are important.
Okay.
Everyone that comes on this show is important, Bob. That's
all
the
right.
last thing you have to remember.
And the host. Let's just get that out there. All right.
Well, look, I want to start at the beginning. So I'd like to take a step back and just kind of get the origin story. How did you come to become the retail doctor? You know, you started your business in 1994. Kind of what led up to the launch of the Retail Doctor?
Oh, my goodness. Well, I have to keep this short, but it's a little detailed. So I put myself through college selling shoes, and then Western stores. Well, you're from Houston. Were really big in the 80s, back before you were probably even born. And so I went to work for this little startup of maybe 5 stores and grew it to 55, largest in the nation. And one day we're at a meeting and the president says, "What's the company's greatest asset?" And I said, "Well, that's easy. It's employees." And he said, "Wrong." And I was like, "Wrong?" And to make a long story short, he said, "It's customers." I was like, "Huh." Went down to his office after the meeting. I said, "The only way we ever made this business was with the employees and what they bring. Customers are fickle. They can go anywhere, but you build it based on how well we reward and train our employees." And I said, "And in 2 weeks, I'm out of here after 14 years. And I quit, and I didn't know what I was going to do. A couple of months later, I decided to go a Tony Robbins session. And back then, Tony only had one-day events, and it was in the Universal Amphitheater when Universal Amphitheater had just had the roof put on it, I think. And I left that session with Tony's one mantra, which is, "You better come up with a brand nobody can do better than you." And literally, I went home and I sat down, and the next morning I filed the patent for the Retail Doctor. And so that's how I became him. But even then, it's like, oh, I'll be a consultant. And I kind of did that for a couple of years. And then one day, there's this little coffee roaster in Long Beach, California. And I read about him, these letters together, wrong with America, the big guy putting the little guy out of business. And apparently they're about to put a new Starbucks 100 feet from this guy's front door, and he's been in business 20 years. So I go down to check him out one night, and half the lights are burned out, and his employees are talking about how they're going to quit because this place will be gone in 3 months when Starbucks open. And I finally met Mike, and I asked him how he's doing, and found out that he owed more than he sold in a year. And his dad said he'd never amount to anything, and his dad was a landlord. And I said, "So tell me, what are you going to do when that second Starbucks opens?" And he goes, "I'm going to send him back to Seattle." I said, "That's great. And how are you going to do that?" And he took a long pause, and he lowered his glasses, and he said, "I haven't got a clue." And from that, we remade his business, went up 50% the first year, 40% the next. And since you're a marketing guy, Mike, you'll be interested in this part. So I realized I had a good thing, so I went out and I pitched it to the local media, got a story in the freebie paper, got it in the local Long Beach paper, and then I just said, "What the hell?" And I called up the New York Times business editor, and I said, "Would you be interested in a story how the little guy beat the big guy?" And he said, "I would." Sent a reporter out to me in July and interviewed me out in Encino, way out in the valley, with Joel Kotkin, who was a pretty famous economics guy. And I'm speaking in Manhattan, end of October 1997, and go down the Hilton, go down to the lobby, and I pick up the Sunday New York Times, and I read the headline, and I flip it over, and there's my picture with Mike on the bottom right, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. And I open up the New York Times, and there, the top of the business section, the entire top is Meet the Category Killer, and that was me. And from that launched the business makeovers for the LA Times and my keynotes and a lot of other things. But to those of you who think that people will just find you, I'm here to tell you it just doesn't happen. And you have to have something to talk about, right? You have to have that right hook, and you better be able to perform. But you better be aware that nobody is out there looking for your story. You're gonna have to make it important to them.
That's awesome. What a great story. So what's the tell me about that first conversation with that retailer, the coffee
With Mike?
coffee shop. Like, did he think it was possible? I mean, he believed, or was it just bravado? False bravado at the point that we're
False
going to
bravado in that, as I always say to people when I go in to do sales training with, whether it's in person or my online retail training course, SalesRX, if they could do the job, they would be doing it. There's nobody that if they could do the job is like, well, I don't want to do it. And I called on Mike 3 times. And I got to the 3rd time. He asked for a proposal. I gave it to him. And the 3rd time I went in, I said, hey, I just want you to understand, I'm not coming back. You're either going to sign and we're gonna go in this dance together, or I'm never coming back. And Mike realized that you might be the boat that's going to save me. And he, the nice thing is that he was able to enjoy that publicity along with me.
Right.
So he won and I won, which to me is the best way.
Absolutely. So over the last year and a half, a lot of retailers have taken a big hit. It's probably a topic you've talked a lot about, right?
Really?
So
Oh.
that's right. So, as we kind of look at this weird time that we're in due to the pandemic, for those business owners listening today who still have a retail operation working, what advice would you give them right now at this stage in the game?
Well, over 400,000 small businesses closed in the last 18 months. So if you made it through the fire, you must be doing something right. So take stock from that. We are in for a once in a generation holiday renaissance in retail. And believe me, I know that there are millions of people that want to tell you the story that no one's going to buy. There's 18th wave of COVID. No one's getting anything through the ports. No one has anyone to work. Right, I get that. But at the end of the day, we're seeing the shopping malls are full. We're seeing retailers being able to amp up. We're seeing hospitality's coming back, restaurants coming back. So just be careful of what you're putting in your mind, because one of your 3 pillars is talking about mindset and work on yourself first, right? So until you do that, I think you just get caught up in task management. And if you're interested, I'll tell you a story about what I had to do to get my head in the game many years ago. So there's your hook if you want to go for it.
That's awesome. Well, so before we talk about that, just you mentioned the online retailers and the pressure, and in some cases, I bet you see this from some of your clients, a convenient excuse for not performing and not doing the work. What should a retailer be thinking about, and what steps should they be taking to try to compete with the Amazon.coms and the Walmart.coms of the world? What are some of the fundamental things they need to take on?
That's got a couple of points to it. I think the first is understanding that more than likely, when we go online, we go to buy, which means I have an HP printer. I need an HP 64 printing cartridge. I don't really need to go down to Staples where I'm going to have to ask for someone with the sacred scrunchie of keys to unlock the $30 cartridge and deliver it to me, right? If I just need it, I'm just going to buy it online. Done. It's in my house the next day or 2. Perfect. However, the fatal flaw most retailers make is if I actually go into that store, I'm interested in more than that HP 64, and yet they treat me as if it is a warehouse, right? So they unlock the sacred cartridge keys, a display. And what do they ask me? Anything else? No. And if I buy a color cartridge, do they suggest the black? No. Do they suggest a subscription that you could get them once every 2 months, 3 months? No. And so money is bleeding out of these brick and mortar retailers because at the heart of it, nobody believes they have to sell anything anymore. And yet 70% of whatever you carry, if you're listening to this podcast, I don't care what it is, someone else carries, and it's probably cheaper than you. And it's that simple. There's always somebody cheaper online, always. But all you can bring to the equation is what your people either add or take away. And I get it. It's tough to find people to work. So what? Get over it. I hired grown men at $2.10 an hour back in the 80s. So what? I ran a whole retail store with 4 people one month. It sucks. I get it. But what's the alternative? Sit around and tell all your buddies, like I go into some stores and people are bitching about vaccine mandates and they don't have this and we're out of that and that person's not. I don't want to do business with you. See, people who go into a store are hopeful, Mike. That's what people who are not hopeful are in a bar at 10 a.m. But if I'm in a store, I want to get the guy, I want to get the gal, I'm getting married, I'm getting a kid, I just lost a relationship, whatever. There's hope in them. So if you just meet me with hope, the world is yours. But most people fundamentally don't understand that's what retail is all about. And so you look at the great brands that are delivering, a Lululemon, you look at Levi's, some of the other brands that are really doing a great job. They understand it's get the right people in there to begin with, and then make sure you go through and train them continuously, and then hold them accountable. Because I think too many people think training is a once and done, and it's kind of like saying, we took an ad out in the Sunday paper, that was good, right? It's like, well, maybe in the 50s, but most people even in the 50s knew they had to do ongoing, right? Wasn't something, it's not marketing isn't a one and done solution.
So what do you think the future of retail is? I know it's a big question and there's a lot of unknowns there, but what do you think the future of retail looks like 10 to 20 years from now? Is it the same, or will there always be a place for retail? What are your thoughts?
I'm the first to say anyone that tells you that they know, or that we're all going to be in Second Life, Zuckerberg's metaverse, and we're all going to have virtual avatars buying clothes. It's like, what are you smoking? I get it. Isn't this fun for the techies to play? And isn't it a great idea? Yeah, it's interesting. But is that going to have legs? Probably not. The whole idea of direct-to-consumer, it sounds great, except most direct-to-consumer brands are doing what right now, Mike? Opening brick-and-mortar stores. And why is that? Because you reach a wall in online is to the amount of money you can just pick up freely has a limit, and then you got to pay a boatload, i.e. look at a Casper, look at some of the other brands who talk about how great they are. They're almost paying people to buy this stuff, but if they didn't have VC money behind them, you'd never know. So that will always be there, but make no mistake, people still are social creatures. We still go out. As much as people think 80% of business being done online, it's really more like 15 to 18%. Yeah, it grew a little bit, but this idea that we're all going to be in curbside pickup and people are going to be delivering stuff to our trunk and our refrigerators, yeah, that makes a great story, and drones, right? But in the end, brick and mortar retail is still a job of relationships. I think we're going to have less stores. Absolutely. There's no two ways about it. But the people that you find there are going to be elevated into a much better service position. You're not going to have someone being able to just be a slacker and, you go and whatever hours you can work is fine. And I think that bodes well for all of us.
Yeah. Some of the marketing gurus out there, the guys like Gary Vaynerchuk, they talk about experience for the customer. And so one of his sort of, thesis is that, as a retailer, you've got an opportunity to create an experience for a customer that they won't have any other place. And I don't know if I'm paraphrasing or putting words in his mouth, but that's how I interpreted it.
There's not enough swear words, so you're not really quoting him, but yeah.
I've cleaned it up a little bit, but so do you think that creating an experience for customers for retail customers is part of the equation, or is that
It's the
just a
only
given?
equation. It's
Yeah.
the only equation. You know, I'm training, I don't know, 10,000 people around the world on 4 continents right now on how to sell retail. And 83% of them reported double-digit increase in 6 months. If you're going to do the work, it's not a secret. Retail is a game of being brilliant on the basics and moving it from a transaction to a relationship. And even though people say like, "Oh, I know all that," yeah, you know, the devil is in the details, right? It would be like somebody hiring you and going, "Hey, we need to be on Facebook." Well, what's our goal? Why do we do that? What's the strategy? How? No, we just need to be on Facebook. Let's just get on Facebook. Like, okay, well, we can just burn through money if that's what you want. And I think that's kind of what we have looked at for most retail is that employees are disposable. We think our brand is better than somebody else's. And at the end of the day, a lot of retailers that went out of business and that are struggling right now, you have shown us the customer is not the most important thing. And so we are paying you back by not going there. And unfortunately, the biggest got bigger, right? The Costco's, the Walmarts, the Targets, and the Amazons, they didn't have to close. They didn't have to change. In fact, they were able to plow more money back in to their services. But not everybody wants that experience. And that's where if you want to play the game, I think, you know, you can make a decent living and your employees can make a really good living, but you're going to have to realize make the customer's day first and not yours. And I think that's a strategic change that most people just aren't ready to accept their role in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I absolutely it does. I feel like the middleman is the one that will get lost in this. I think that there will be my theory based on the world according to Mike, but I think that there will be the middleman is the guy that gets lost, right? The big box guys will still be there because it's all about volume, right? The volume play will be there, and discount and volume will always have a place in the market. But when I find myself going to retailers and really being excited about going to retailers is when I'm going really nichey, right? It's when I'm walking into a woodworking shop where I know everyone in the building knows 10 times about this subject more than I do. And I'm going there for the expertise. I'm going there for the quality. I'm going there for, in some cases, the experience, right? Because they've got products on display. They've got, demos. They may have trainings or classes or opportunities to experience things that I just can't do in an online or virtual world. And those are the places, and I'm willing to pay a premium to have that experience in a lot of ways. I'm willing to spend 10 or 15% more to be able to have a conversation with the guy who's used the product and can tell me everything I need to know about it. I know, I guess we would call REI a big box, but I think they're more nichey. They're certainly not Walmart. And I remember I was planning a big trip. I was doing a hike. I climbed Kilimanjaro a few years ago.
Wow.
And I needed a bunch of new gear that I had no idea what it was or what was good and what was bad. And I didn't want to chance it, right? It was going to be an important trip. The last thing I want to do is get there and not have something work. And so I remember I walked in there and I was looking around and everything's expensive there. Let's be honest. REI is more expensive than going to other outdoor or sporting goods stores, right? But I remember I say I'm looking for a headlamp. It's one thing on my list. I need a headlamp. And I walked up to one of the clerks and I said, "Hey, I'm looking for a headlamp." He goes, "Well, let me show you where they're at." And he takes me over to show me where they're at. He says, "What are you going to do?" Great. Now that's a conversation I probably wouldn't have anywhere else. You just ask one question. What are you trying to do? Where are you going? What's happening? And I told him what I was doing. And I said, will this last? It's going to be really important. Will it last the entire trip? He said, "Well, I spent 5 months on the Appalachian Trail, and this is the one that I used." I went, "Okay, sold. I'll take that one." Because the clerk had experience, right? The person helping me had experience and really knew the products intimately. And I was happy to pay more just to know that I got the one that will work in the circumstances that were important to me. And I think there's going to be a place for that. And I think that is where people can really flourish. And so when I see people getting really niche and really small, some people think, well, can you make enough money doing that? Well, if you do it really, really well, you can be successful, I think.
Absolutely. I've got photography stores doing really well, running
Yeah.
stores, all of that. What people again miss, which is why you have to train your retail salespeople, is what did that guy really do with you? Is he built up confidence?
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing that we miss. Is I see something on Instagram. I can't tell you how many things I bought on Instagram or think I'm going to buy on Instagram, and I click it, and it's like, oh, that looks like an interesting shirt, and you're like, $29. What kind of crap is this? I wouldn't buy this in a million years. And we buy the promise, oh, this would be interesting, and then you get it, and you're like, this is crap. I don't want this. And so then you have to think about how do I box it up and how do I get rid of it and all this. Whereas when you meet somebody that's, to your point, that says they've used it and they make you feel smarter for having been there, that's great. But make no mistake, a lot of retailers, especially in niches, have made their money by being product knowledge specialists, which is great. But I'm not that guy that wants to hear it's got a 32nd of an inch of aluminum on titanium with a strawberry coating that goes around. I don't need all of that. And if you start getting into all that, I'm out because it's too much. So being able to understand different personalities and understand it's really a psychology game, but the goal, make no mistake, Mike, is to get the sale. There's a trend right now in brick and mortar retailers where people are coming up with pop-ups and they're coming up with new concepts and they're like, doesn't matter if they buy it here, if they get it online and it's all the same, it's brand. It's like, that's crap. What you miss is, if I come into your brick and mortar store, I had to raise my hand a lot before I got there, right? So I'm half watching, Succession, and I pick up my iPad and I'm looking for running shoes. Okay, so I do some things. I do a Google search. I've already raised my hand, like I'm interested in this. I find one best running store in Manhattan. Okay, great, I'll go there. And I drive down there. I raise my hand essentially like I'm in. Willing to roll the dice, find a parking place, and walk in the door and hope to God there's somebody who is literate and fun and makes me feel smarter and confident. I have raised my hand like 4 or 5 times before getting in there. It's your sale to lose if you don't recognize what it took for someone to not just buy it online. And I think the smart retailers like Fleet Feet and some other ones are really doing a job at saying, all right, well, what can we take, like technology? One of the things they've got is this whole system of measuring feet that's really amazing, and it's not the old Brannick device, and then they use that for how to exceed people's expectations, or people who are using Podium who have taken their landline and converted it to a textable line so that frequent customers can go through and actually talk to the business instead of Jane texting on her phone and Tom doing his. They can combine it and use the best of technology. To me, I think there's never been a better time to be a smart retailer, but it's a punishing time to be a lazy one.
That's right. I don't think there's no rest for the weary. Those the ones who put in the effort, just like any business, really, the ones that are willing to go the extra mile, to take the extra step, are the ones that will ultimately improve their chances of success, we'll say. Okay, so we're heading into the holiday season, right? It's you've already mentioned you're expecting a boom. That's the prognosticators are saying it's going to be a great retail sales year. What are some of the common strategies that you see retail organizations fumble that cost them real money this time of year? What are some of the things that you see them do that really jeopardize their getting the most out of this opportunity?
Well, obviously, you haven't done any training with your employees, and you have bitter Bob on the sales floor, and you think no one notices. We all notice. We don't want to be there. You staff for what's comfortable or what somebody wants to work. You don't staff for the rush, which means that customers have to wait. People hate waiting. You have done such an over-reliance of we can ship it to you that no one knows how to get them to take the merch from you today. And here's why that's so important, Mike, is because once I leave your store, I am now open to everything else. Somebody geofenced your store, why don't you come visit us down the mall, or I see something else. And they don't realize that until it's on their body, it's not a sale. I'm not using that hammer or that saw or dressing in whatever I'm dressing, that it's still out there. So I think that's it. I think the 20% off this weekend only, families and friends discount crap. It's such lazy marketing. Or not respecting people and just putting in, 800 offers in an email. And you just think, what a waste, because I already had a relationship with you, but you're torching it because it's just too much. And I think you haven't really decided who your customer is. So you're marketing to me as if I'm your target, and maybe I was once. But isn't it funny how many times have you ever bought flowers or some kind of a gift? Could be a food gift or something, and you bought it for someone. And how many times did anyone ever really reach back to you? I'll bet never, which I never get with florists. It's like if I bought flowers and I'm 3,000 miles away at Mother's Day or at Christmas, wouldn't it just make sense that we track that and try to get somebody back? But we don't, because we really look at it as a transaction business. And I think the smart retailers look at the exact opposite, which is what's the lifetime value. I used to be in the coffee business. After I left Mike, I was the CMO of It's a Grind Coffee. If you ever saw Showtime's Weeds, we were the coffee house on that with Mary Louise Parker. It's good times trying to explain to your franchisees why the lead character is selling a mom selling pot is good branding, but that's another discussion. But I think that we go through and we just don't realize what it looks like to the customer. And to all of you who are listening, just remember, you already get it. What you care about is the people that don't get you and want to know more.
Right. In B2B marketing, we talk about personas. Like that's one of the first conversations that I have with the customer is we're going to start narrowing the world down into the people that really matter. And do you find that concept is that escapes a lot of retailers, especially the smaller ones, just really understanding and defining, or even taking the trouble to write down what they think that the persona is of their ideal buyers?
It comes from any money in my jeans at the end of the month is money in my jeans. So if I got money from anyone, I'm happy. And all of the world is my customer. And I'm like, oh, really? So, your gift store, really? So a new mom is perfect for you. Well, we don't have anything for babies. Oh, so maybe not new moms would be a thing. What about construction workers? Think construction workers are going to buy little doilied pillows or something like? Well, maybe not. Okay, good. And when they start getting down to it, it's like, wow, I guess we really are kind of a niche. Now, it's funny because at the same time, we're seeing these crazy branding, like Walmart is carrying sheets with the Gap brand on them. And, Kroger is looking at bringing in True Value into their stores. And Bed Bath & Beyond, I think, is doing something with Kroger, too. And at some point, you're just like, oh, so we have a captive audience. We'll just throw more stuff at the consumer. And I'm not sure that's the way forward. If I go to a department store and I see a store in the store for Canali, which is a brand I wear, oh, okay, good. I recognize that. That's why I'm there. I know that these will be departments. But is that really what you want to discover when you're trying to buy milk and eggs? I'm not so sure.
Yeah. That is, we find that to be a huge issue. In fact, we're trying to drive real measurable change for a B2B client. And this happens a lot in technology. Solutions integrators or software developers will say, well, look, we can build anything for anybody. And it's true that they could build anything for anyone, but that's an impossible way to market the business. I can't market everything to everyone because you don't have enough money for that. And even if you did, it would be the wrong decision. So we have to really challenge them, like you just did with the doilies and things for babies. It's like, what are your best 5 customers? What do they look like? What do they buy from you? And what's the commonality amongst those customers? And let's see if we can't narrow this down. Yes, you can do anything for everyone, but from a marketing standpoint, we're going to go and try to find the people that you do the best work for, who need it the most,
and who'll pay it. Let's not. Because we've all gotten those clients where, holy crap, how many times are they going to contact me about this? In SalesRX, my online training, it's pretty much a self-service model at the lower number of users. And when you get up in the enterprise, you got 300 or 400 stores. Well, yeah, but you know what? I don't want Macy's. I couldn't do Macy's. it would be too much for us to, it would be too big of a change for us to take that on. There might be ways, if Macy's is listening to this, there might be ways that we could work together, but I certainly wouldn't set all of my marketing efforts to go after a whale like that, because what if you do catch them? And I still think it comes down to being a profitable business. You know, who do you make money on with the least amount of effort and the best? Because to your point, yeah, you could have a MacGyver technology solution. Yeah, we can build it for you. But how many extra hours does that take? And then how do you explain it to somebody? And then, you know, if everything is bespoke, how would you know this is the shorter path? You wouldn't. And so you're selling risk and fear to a customer, and that's the two worst things you can sell, I think.
Absolutely. So what are you seeing right now as, you know, if I'm a retailer and I'm listening to this, what advertising or promotional strategies are you finding works most consistently right now to drive foot traffic into stores?
Well, for one thing, there already is foot traffic to your store. So, you know, as much as people will say, oh, I just need more bodies, it's like, no, you need to convert more bodies. So, you know, anyone who comes in there, if I'm going into a, I don't know, women's apparel store, if I walk in there, shame on you if I don't buy something. It's not like I walked in like, oh, do you guys carry cappuccinos? Like, no, we know what you sell. And again, I've raised my hand probably 4 times before I walked in the door. So understanding that that customer is yours to lose, and I think that the key to all of it, if you're looking at marketing, is always start with existing. People who know you are such a much better target, because you can either get more out of them when they come in the door, you get to come back more often, or you get them to tell their friends. And so again, I used Podium for my site, but I was doing a speech in Dallas to Pawn Store Association, and I used this little. I used a screen grab of a search I'd done on Google for pawn shop around me, or best pawn shop, whatever. And up came this one company had 1,100 reviews, and the second location of them had 1,000 reviews. And I'm like, holy crap! And they were all 5-star. And then the next one had like 40. And then the next had 0. And so I showed this and I said, this is amazing. You know, Google is looking at this, is delivering it, even though they were farther away from where I was writing. This woman comes up at the end and she goes, I'm glad you used our examples. You know how we get that? I was like, no. She goes, we have grandma. And I'm like, you have 18 stores. What's grandma? She goes, well, grandma started it 70 some years ago. And so what happens is after somebody makes a purchase with us, we send out a little link through Podium like, oh, please give us a review. And here's how to do it. Then she follows up the next week. Hey, how did you like your purchase from us? Were you able to review us? And she physically calls anyone over X amount of money to make sure that they get those reviews. And I said, that is the best use of that time you could do. Plus, she loves talking to people because she started the business. Now, does everybody need a grandma? No, but I think you need to understand, probably one of the least understood things by smaller retailers, I think, is Google My Business. And a tip that was just on a webinar doing with a bunch of retailers the other day is the status update. So it's the holidays. There's a lot of shortages out there. If I had the Lego, I don't know what, Squid Squad or whatever it is on Netflix, Squid Cruise, whatever it is. If I had something that was in demand, I would do a status update in Google My Business that said, you know, we have 5 of these in stock, perfect gift for whoever it was, and I would post it. And the reason I would do that is because when Google shows up your search results, it's going to remember that, and they actually appear in that listing of yours. So if you have something that is hot and you can actually put the number of units in there, yeah, it's a little more work. I'll give you that. And I'm not going to do it for a $4 item, but if it's in demand, it's $100 or something. Those are the kind of smart moves that if you've got enough people on the floor you trust, and by the way, this isn't something the owner does, but you find a way to realize that people who are searching for you want to come give you the money. You just got to help them. And then, yeah, when it comes to social media, there's things you can do as well. I'm a big believer of looking for employees through social media because people who like you are more likely to know people that are like that. But always start with existing.
So Yeah, I couldn't agree. And that by the way, that's great advice for B2B, you know, companies as well. It doesn't matter the size or the value of your solution. Start with the people who are already buying from you. It's so much more effective to try to get them to buy again than it is, or to get them to buy more, or to increase their purchase levels than it is to find that new customer. It's so many customers. So many of my clients come to me saying we need more customers. Like, yes,
Everybody says
absolutely,
that.
you need more customers, and I would agree that should be a goal, is to get more customers. But there are two other ways that you can grow your business, and one is getting your existing customers to spend more money with you, or get your existing customers to purchase more frequently, which are
And to rave about you, right? Because people who have money, if you're in the pool business, the goal is that you do such an amazing job, and then you help them throw a kickoff party for the new pool, and you show up there and pass out your card. That's great marketing. That's a great job for a business owner, but that's kind of pushy, Bob. That's hard. We'd have to figure out when they were going to have the party, and then we'd have to invite. It's like, and many people take ourselves out of the game of marketing because we get catastrophitis. Oh, we couldn't do that. Oh, well, you're right. You win. Yay, you. So what are you going to do instead? Nothing.
yeah. So let's talk about B2B for a minute here. So you obviously, your clients are businesses, and you've done a great job of building your business over the years. So, um, first of all, what do you take from the work that you do with your clients, your B2C clients in most cases? What have you learned from that experience that helps you penetrate new businesses for yourself?
Well, the hardest
Or,
thing is
or
taking your own advice, isn't it?
yeah, absolutely. Isn't that
Because
funny?
isn't it easier to say, you need to go do this? Wait, squirrel, shiny object. I have to go get that. Like, no, not necessarily. So, it's funny because we just hired 2 more people 2 days ago.
Oh,
And we now have 5 on staff, which is a very different mindset than what I always used to say. I'm a solopreneur, and aren't I great? Well, realizing that training is everything. So, what I think has helped me is when I can actually walk the walk that I am teaching, then I can be that voice that says, "Yeah, you don't have a problem." People often say to me, "I don't have time to train." I just don't have time. We're too busy. We're understaffed, blah, blah, blah. Catastrophization takes place, right? And I'm like, you don't have a decision. You don't have a time problem. You have a decision problem. You don't equate putting money in and time in right now for the future as valuable to you. So you have a decision problem. You either value what you're going to be doing in the future or you don't, but it's not a time problem because there will never be enough time. And if I was to tell you, Mike, hey, dude, I have this $100,000 around the world trip that you and I could take. It departs JFK tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. We're going to go first super class on Bezos' personal jet. We arrive first stop, and I give you the itinerary. I can pretty much guarantee you would find the time to make it. And people just don't realize the choices you make now are the most important thing. You are known more for your compromises than your successes. And so just understanding that if I say that, then I have to make sure we deliver on that same promise. And also to understand that, hey, I'm a training company, that people are going to have the same problems, right? Like they're going to get halfway through and then they're going to say, oh, this is hard. I want to pull back. And we want to be there to say, all right, well, let's get on a call and walk you through it. We're not going to take acceptance for it. In other words, if you buy my program, you don't use it, that's on you. But if you go through and you're struggling, I want to be that running buddy with you that says, yeah, we can do this together. That's important. And I think that's true no matter what you sell, right? Same thing in your marketing.
so one of the things, so LinkedIn is an incredible platform, right, for connecting with other businesses and people who could potentially hire you as a trainer. And I don't think I've come across anyone in the last 10 years who does a better job of building an audience on LinkedIn and sharing their expertise on LinkedIn. It's how I came to know you, and it's how I followed you, and I've admired what you've done over the years. And I was looking this morning, as of this morning, I don't know if you know this number or not, but as of this morning, you have 367,000 followers on LinkedIn. Now, I don't know if I follow anyone on LinkedIn. So how in the world are you doing this? If you don't mind sharing a little bit of behind the curtains there, that's an amazing, you've built an amazing audience on LinkedIn in a way that I don't see a lot of other people doing. I want to know what you're doing.
I have a 5-point plan that I can sell you for $99 in 3 equal payments. Oh, I think
I'm sold.
yeah, exactly. Where do I sign up? The key, I think, for any of it, Mike, is the same thing that you would say, which is you've got to be authentic. You got to be willing to call things out. You know, my brand online is, I wouldn't say it's more severe, but it's definitely more of a black and white world online. I'm not above calling out reporters and saying, this is crap. You're just telling the story about retail apocalypse. It's not true. Here's why. Boom, boom, boom. I'm also try to share some people that I follow, share some of their information, and I do some commenting. But make no mistake, I probably am posting through, I use HubSpot, but I have my own blog, and there's 800 blogs up there. So we definitely have an evergreen strategy because basically, again, retail is about being brilliant on the basics. So a lot of that works. But I also will go through, I'm a top voice on LinkedIn because of all of this as well. But, and I'll find a story and I'll put my spin on it. So if I'm reading something about whatever, somebody is saying about a brand or a situation. Well, it's a perfect example. A couple weeks ago, Mayor de Blasio in New York City is about to announce he's getting rid of the mentally gifted program. And a lot of people are saying, oh, they need to do this because of this and this. And so I took the contrary view and I said, we're about to unreward, whatever the word is, people who need that heads up. And I told my story of being a kid in junior high where I was picked on relentlessly and I knew the answers. And even if I tried to hide it, I still got the A's. And I was ready to quit school. I told my mom, I will not go back to school today. And she goes, just try one more day. And out of nowhere in the middle of the day, this counselor calls me to his office. He goes, you remember that test you took last fall? And that was in 7th grade. And I was like, no. And he goes, well, it got you to be put into this program in California. We are going to give you a whole new class schedule starting tomorrow. And suddenly I was with my friends and suddenly I was rewarded. Well, that made a great post because it was personal. And it was timely because I'm tying it into a news article. But make no mistake, I don't just talk about retail. I have to be that person. My brand is a thought leader and saying we can be more and we can do more with hope. That was my brand last year. I still had about 300,000 followers last year, but I started doing every day Hope for Retail. And I would do a post when we were all closed. I would take a different brand every day and tell a story about a purchase. So if it was Macy's, if it was Neiman Marcus, it didn't matter. It's like we're looking forward to you coming back because every purchase has a story about how we bought it and why and the merchandise. And I relentlessly did that. And that, trust me, by the 3rd week, you're like, all right, what else did I buy? But when you realize that's your role, then people feel like, oh, that's my brand. And I won't kid you, there's a lot of luck in what I do. I was lucky back in 96, 97. People actually gave a damn that their local coffee house was going under and 2 Starbucks. I don't know, that's the story now. So whatever you're listening to, yours is going to be different. But the idea that you can do it through smoke and mirrors, I think you got to show up more than ever and be that consistent voice. And even in my case, I think I apologize. I think I'm a more compassionate guy in person. I think I'm a more fun-loving guy in person than I might be online. But also, I really have about that much time to get your attention. So that first line in my LinkedIn post, and by the way, this is a secret tip, don't tell anyone, but you do one line and then a space and then one line. These people that put like a paragraph up there, no one's reading it. What are you kidding yourself? So you want to get like 10 lines because that's going to get people to scroll, which ultimately gets them to read it more, which gets them more invested in your brand. And that's true whether it's Facebook or Instagram or the rest. But don't tell anyone I said that, Mike.
No, that's your secret's safe with me.
Thank you.
So, well, look, that I promised you we take less than an hour. So I think that's a great place to wrap ourselves up. Thanks so much for joining me today. It's been really, really exciting. I've learned a lot listening to you. Look, where's the best way for people to reach you, Bob? I'm sure there are people who heard stuff today and thought, man, I got to get a hold of this guy. I got to find this guy. So what's the best place for people to reach you?
Well, the conceited Bob would say, just Google the Retail Doctor and you'll find me. There's a guy in Australia now using my brand amazingly, but it's the Retail Doctor. I'm based in New York. You could also go check me out on LinkedIn, be one of my 368,000 followers now on LinkedIn, Bob Phibbs, or more importantly, check out RetailDoc.com or SalesRX.com. And if you're interested in finding the way through this mess of brick and mortar retail and realize that employees are your greatest asset, I might be your best choice you could make today. And I thank you for having me today, Mike.
Well, it was my pleasure, and I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing some of your insight with us. We'll include Bob's information in our notes that you can find on our website associated with this episode. Before I wrap it up, I want to take a minute just to thank everyone who's started following the podcast. It's exciting to see the momentum build and inspiring for me to continue to find great people like Bob to interview. If you know a retail business owner, please share this podcast with them so that they can benefit from learning some of Bob's insight in some of the tips and in stories that he shared with us today from the Retail Doctor. If you like the conversation, of course, I would be grateful if you could give us a 5-star rating and leave us a review on iTunes. Taking just a few seconds to do that. Bob, you know this has a huge impact on people's ability to find the podcast and to reach more people, and that's what we're trying to do. So thanks again for listening, and remember that B2B leaders grow companies faster when they focus on the big three. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Pro Sales Connection is a sales and marketing firm that has been helping B2B companies grow faster since 2009. Learn more about our proprietary fastest path to revenue process for B2B companies. Experiencing the possibilities begins with a short 15-minute call. Schedule yours at www.prosalesconnection.com and click Get Started.